Hey guys, welcome back. And in this episode, we're talking about gender-based violence and femicide, as well as critically analyzing South African cities. Femicide in South Africa is said to be at the level of a pandemic. Gender-based violence in South Africa affects women and children from all walks of life. It is said to be systematic and entrenched in institutions, patriarchy, cultures, and traditions. Gender-based violence is deeply rooted in gender inequality and is a human rights violation. According to the South African government, femicide is the intentional killing of females because they are females. There are 6 forms of gender-based violence. These include violence against women and girls, violence against LGBTI people, often experienced by people who are seen as not conforming to their assigned gender roles. Intimate partner violence, which is the most common form of gender-based violence. It includes physical, sexual, emotional abuse, and controlling behaviors by an intimate partner or spouse. These can occur in heterosexual or same-sex relationships. Domestic violence, which is violence carried out by partners or family members. Sexual violence, which includes any sexual act, any attempt to carry out a sexual act. Unwanted sexual comments or advances or acts to traffic or otherwise directed against a person's sexuality using coercion by any person regardless of their relationship with the victim, in any setting including but not limited to work and home. Indirect or structural violence. This is a form of violence where a social structure or social institution harms people by preventing them from meeting their basic needs. So let's look at the stats of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa. 51% of all women in South Africa have experienced violence at the hands of their partners. A woman is killed every 3 hours in South Africa. 56% of all women who were murdered in 2009 were killed by an intimate partner. South Africa faces a high prevalence of gang rape. Most men who rape for the first time do so as teenagers. Almost all men who rape do so by their mid-20s. Between 28 and 37% of adult men report having raped a woman. Just under 50% of women report having experienced emotional or economic abuse at the hands of their partners. The murder rate in South Africa is 15.2 female victims in every 100,000. Only Honduras, Jamaica, and Lesotho have a higher femicide rate. So what is the relevance of this subject in urban planning? Gender-based violence and femicide are national issues that all built environments practitioners should take extremely seriously. The design of our cities, neighborhoods, buildings, roads, open spaces, public spaces, institutions, and transport systems impact the day-to-day lives of women and children. As urban planners, we have a duty to protect the public interest. It is in saying that we should consider our role in making spaces better and safer for women and children. As an ordinary citizen, you might be asking, what is the relevance of this video for you? You have a right and a say in how spaces are designed for your use. You are what we refer to as an end user. As citizens, we should demand that our local authorities, councillors, mayors, provincial and national governments create safe spaces for us to live, work and play. In this episode, we talked to 2 female town planners on their perspective of South African cities. They also share their perspectives on legislation, policies, national government and the police. Their views are their own, however they share common feelings expressed by women and girls. They also give some suggestions on how we can better plan for safer cities.
I just want to state very clearly, and first things first, is that a matter of urgency is a matter of now. Gender-based violence is not a matter that we can postpone for tomorrow, or a matter that we can postpone for 2 weeks from now, or even a month from now. Gender-based violence is a matter of urgency that this country needs to have dealt with as in yesterday. It is not a matter that we can afford to deal with tomorrow, or a matter that we can afford to deal with next month. So for me, personally speaking, from the time that we saw multitudes of women and children marching towards Parliament on the 5th of September, up to the time that these new three gender-based violence bills have been introduced into Parliament by our president, has been a period of a year. In fact, it's been just over a year, because the bills were introduced on the 7th of September. So it's been 367 days of that time that has transpired before something had to have been done about gender-based violence that has been brought forward by women, that has been brought forward by children as a matter of urgency in this country. How is it possible that it can take an entire year for 3 bills to be introduced before something can be done that is tangible, that is visible by our government against gender-based violence, when women are still being murdered, when women are still getting raped, women and children, daily? The figures or the statistics that we hear about of women that get murdered or raped in this country, women and children that get raped and killed in this country hourly, is absolutely staggering and shocking. And there are many more that go unreported. So for me, personally speaking, I feel that our government should have done much more at a much earlier stage in assisting or combating this matter of gender-based violence when women and children are still being killed to this day. I read an article today of a Mpumalanga official and his, I think it's a stepson or son or whatever, who have been arrested for the murder of twins that are 8 years old today. So just to speak to the 3 bills that have been introduced in an attempt to honor the women and children who marched to Parliament last year. Really, I believe that honestly, if we were very serious as a country, as a government, as Parliament, to take this matter of gender-based violence very seriously, we could have easily identified and started actioning this matter as quickly as we did COVID-19. As quickly as we did COVID-19 is as quickly as we could have started doing something about gender-based violence. And to introduce bills into Parliament it's almost an absolute slap in the face of every single woman and child in this country, because we know as town planners how long it takes from the time that a bill is introduced into Parliament till the time that bill is actually enacted, or that bill is starts coming into effect. That is such a long, arduous process with regards to the amendments of the Domestic Violence Act that says failure of SAPS to comply with obligations will be charged with misconduct and reported. I don't understand why this bill doesn't say that an SAPS member who fails to comply with their job to protect women and children in this country, or that fails to take a woman seriously who comes to report rape at the police station, how can this bill possibly say that they will be charged with misconduct and reported? Who is going to charge them with misconduct and report them? Realistically, who is going to do that? I feel like this bill should read that they will actually be charged with misconduct and they will be replaced. No. So there's a whole lot more than I can speak about on this, but in a sense, there can be much more that can be done for us as women and children in this country, and men in this country, to take more seriously gender-based violence as a matter of national priority as it is. And my answer to this question is, I am not satisfied with the interventions that have been put forward, or the urgency that has been put forward by government to help combat gender-based violence. Of course, this is an initiative that would be welcomed publicly. Well, this is now speaking on behalf of females, or speaking as a female. It would be welcomed publicly, definitely. It would not be welcomed as a complete end to gender-based violence, but it would be welcomed as something that can be done in our communities or in the places that we live in, as a means of working towards preventing targeted attacks on women and children as they're walking on the streets. I recall sometime last year, I was actually jogging out early in the morning with my cell phone, because I use my cell phone to track my distance and my kilometers and whatnot. And I got mugged. not even far from where I stay, just a few blocks from where I stay. And the thing is, I've actually heard of several incidents that have happened at that exact same spot that I got mugged at, of people who repeatedly get mugged, women specifically who repeatedly get mugged at that corner. We are aware that the same area is a crime spot, but still there's no presence of police. There is just nothing being done to have a stronger police presence or stronger security presence on that part of town. So yeah, I do believe that had it been that there were more eyes on the street, this is my particular incident now, when I was being mugged, had there been more eyes on the street, just general like lighting on the street, I'm pretty sure that incident could have been avoided altogether. If there actually was police presence on our streets, police actually patrolling our streets, especially in areas where they know very well that these are targeted crime hotspot areas, then definitely, and stopping and searching of people who look suspicious, or suspicious men, or it can even be suspicious women, you never know, but just anyone who just looks suspicious. A lot of crime that happens on the streets can be easily prevented. That with regards to ride-sharing services, such as Bolt or Uber, just very difficult to track or trace, the specific company or specific headquarters where you can actually go directly if you've got an issue with ride-sharing services. But also, for example, I've had incidences whereby I've requested a Bolt or I've requested an Uber. I got sent the driver's details, and when the driver arrived, the car was different to what was sent to me on the app, or the person's face is not the same as the face that got sent to me on the app. So now you can imagine the problems we can possibly face as women, and with regards to our safety, if now I've requested a Bolt or I've requested an Uber, or the driver who comes is not the same driver whose photo got sent to me, registration plate is not the same, the car is not the same, and these things happen. And what happens now, because I've now sent this information to my relative, and let's say, for example, just really extreme case, this person who now rocks up is actually not a Bolt driver or is not an Uber driver, and they now take me somewhere and they go and rape me somewhere, or they murder me somewhere, or whatever the case may be. This is a very extreme scenario, but I'm trying to paint a picture that this could possibly happen, and it possibly is happening, because if I could get the wrong or the incorrect information, someone else is possibly getting the same thing, and something could have possibly happened to someone out there with regards to ride-sharing services or ride-sharing app. And I really, really believe that with regards to how they can better be regulated is just better management with regards to connecting people with the correct driver and that sort of thing. I think personally there may be a bit too much freedom with these ride-sharing services, how you get accepted as a Bolt or an Uber driver, and I don't know what the necessary precautions are that are taken to ensure that these drivers are they're people who you're not a ex-murderer or something. I don't think you would be able to tell, but if you get what I mean, I think there aren't enough or more enough precautions that are taken, with regards to how these people start becoming drivers. I just believe if you're going to be a Bolt driver and Uber driver, you should be using one vehicle, one registration plate, one photo, and if it changes, it should be updated immediately on the system of whoever owns the company or whoever's regulating the services of the company. Cities are still being designed by men. That's our first and foremost problem, is that we have cities that are still being designed by men. And so long as cities are still being designed by men, cities will not be designed with a female or with females and children in mind, unfortunately. So what is lacking with regards to the design of cities that we see today? Simple things such as street frontage and just streets, street lighting, street signage, additional space on streets for women, and women, specifically women who've got babies, women who've got children, who, you've got such narrow sidewalks on the streets that are not designed thinking about a woman who is possibly walking a child who is in a pram, a baby in a pram who's walking on the side of the street. Simple things like those just are characteristic that streets or cities are really not designed with women in mind. So what is lacking, I would say, narrow streets, narrow street walks, not enough lighting on streets, definitely. A lot of the incidents that happen on streets, that happen to women and children who get mugged, who get raped, these things happen in dark alleys, or places in cities that are just, there's no lighting. There is absolutely nothing that just provides some sense of light on the streets. Many women in our cities are walking home by themselves, or are walking to get to different modes of transport to get to work each and every single day. And the reality is in our country that a lot of women are traveling from townships outside of town and having to travel inside of town each and every single day to get to their places of work. And unfortunately, the places that they have to walk in are just not properly lit. They're not properly lit. Women have to walk in darkness, and there are no eyes on the street. There is lack of patrolling on the streets, lack of street lighting. And, obviously these are high crime spot areas where women literally get targeted because of areas that are not properly lit. Simple, small things that can be sorted out very simply by providing street lighting in areas that are specifically crime hotspot areas for women who are walking by themselves early in the morning or late at night. What can be done with regards to better community planning? I think it's just communities just standing together with regards to assisting for example, a female who may be in an abusive relationship, or a female who may be in a situation whereby she feels that she was afraid to speak out, or she is afraid to ask anyone in the community for assistance. Typical example is this: you are living in a complex, or you are living somewhere whereby the perpetrator and the partner are literally right next door to your wall, and you can hear if there is arguing, you can hear if there is fighting, you can hear if there is something that does not seem right that is going on right next door to you. So critical and so important that we as community members, us as neighbors, start speaking up, start reporting abuses, so that we don't have incidences whereby now you as a neighbor or you as a community member, you know that the woman who lives next door to you is being abused, but you don't report it, you don't say anything about it, you don't speak up about it, you don't report it to the police, or you don't do anything about it. And these things can end up resulting in loss of life with regards to the protection of women and children on the streets, and wherever they are, if they have to travel to work, whatever the case may be. I really believe that if communities come together, if they come together truly and start protecting one another, start protecting the women and the children in their communities, that women and children will start feeling so much more safer, resulting in reduced incidences of crime, reduced incidences of abuse, murders, and all these different types of things in our communities, on our streets. What can be done with regards to community planning to prevent loss of life? Things such as forming neighborhood watches, which is really creating a sense of eyes on the streets, where people actually feel protected, that even if something were to happen, if someone was being attacked, there are people that are close by. There are people that are close by that can jump in, that can help. And just a second part to add to that is, even if there are community members who are nearby, because there have been many incidences where a person will get murdered on the streets, and there are actually onlookers. There are onlookers on the streets. There are people who are actually right next to those people, and people do absolutely nothing about it. They do not report it. They do not jump in to assist for various reasons, and some which can be understandable because you are afraid yourself of losing your own life. But this is where our problem starts. Our problem starts in that we have become a people who are not willing to assist other people, or not willing to even report something else on behalf of someone else, or just choosing just to look the other way, us knowing very well that something is happening and we can see something happening. And if our response towards crime, if our response towards gender-based violence in our communities was much more awakened, much more heightened, this could go a long way in preventing the loss of life in women and children, or even males that are getting attacked and that are getting brutally murdered in our communities.